I didn't sleep the night before my son's wedding. At 5 a.m., I was already at my desk pretending to reconcile ledgers while the numbers floated like minnows across the screen. My name is Marissa Hale, 47, accidental insomniac and owner of a 2-room CPA practice that's also my spare bedroom. The work paid for braces, band trips, and, eventually, college. It also plugged the leaks my husband's paychecks left behind. Outside our Charlotte backyard, the world was still blue with early light. In a few hours, the patio would become a ceremony aisle, white chairs in crisp rows, glass lanterns waiting to catch the sunset. I'd spent spring training Jasmine over the wooden arbor Chad built one weekend between golf rounds. I wanted the air to smell like something good when my son said his vows, like proof that care turns into beauty if you give it long enough. 26 years of marriage to Chad. 24 raising Noah. I've been the fulcrum, the calendar, the lunches, the we'll be okay. Lately the fulcrum wobbled. Chad's phone started living face down. Conversations died when I walked into the room. Big quarter, he'd say. Promotion talk. I tried to believe him because belief is cheaper than panic. The door creaked and Noah padded in, hair rumpled, a mug the size of a cereal bowl in his hand. He's 24, broad-shouldered like his father, quieter like me. Dark moons under his eyes told the real story. You've been up for hours, he said, setting the mug on a coaster from a beach trip we took when he was 10. Your mother runs on caffeine and dread, I said, aiming for light. It landed crooked. He perched on my desk the way he did when he was little and couldn't stand even a foot of distance. Dad left early, he said, tone that fake casual men use when they're bracing for a hit. Said he needed to pick up something for Lily's parents. Lily Mercer, 23, elegant as a knife, top of her class at a downtown firm, a last name that swung certain doors open. I wanted to love her with the force of a wish. Mom, he asked, eyes on the mug, do you think she actually loves me? Not what I could be. Me. The question hit like a dropped stone. I had seen Lily's gaze drift mid-story, thumbs busy during family dinners. I'd also noticed how often she texted Chad about mentorship and investment strategy, and how quickly he responded. Cold feet are normal, I said. The good kind. He nodded, swallowed. This doesn't feel like feet. When she walks in, she looks past me to find Dad. It's like I'm the box she needs to check for the life she wants. Before I could shape an answer that wasn't a wound, Chad filled the doorway, impeccable already, pressed shirt, practiced smile. There's my team, he beamed. The smile lived on his mouth, not in his eyes. Big day. Let's try not to cry before 9, okay? He kissed the air near my cheek, then told us Lily would stop by at 10 to finalize sensitive seating, politics, you know how her family is. Right, Noah said. His voice smoothed to nothing. After they left, I canceled the caterer call I'd rehearsed for a week and cleaned a spotless kitchen. At 10 on the dot, a pearl-white coupe slid into our drive. Lily stepped out, dark jeans, pale blouse, beauty tied tight as a bow. My heart thudded a warning I didn't want but couldn't ignore. I slipped out the back door, moved along the crepe myrtles, and crouched beneath the wide bay window like a burglar in my own life. Spying is a specific shame. Needing the truth more than your dignity is another. Inside, Chad poured a drink. They stood too close. His hand settled on the small of her back like it had an address there. Lily looked up with a smile I hadn't seen when Noah talked about anything that didn't come with a return. When Chad's fingers slid into her hair and their mouths met, the world narrowed to a point. Sound left. Heat vanished. My body remembered how to move before my mind did. I stood, ready to tear the door off its hinges, when a hand closed around my wrist. Noah. He must have been on the upstairs landing. I'd seen a silhouette in the glass. Now he was next to me in the shrub line, face the color of paper, eyes iron steady. "Not yet," he whispered. "Please." "How long?" I asked. Or croaked. It felt like my throat had gravel in it. "Weeks," he said. I needed to be sure. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking. "I hired someone." The photos were clean and merciless, Chad and Lily walking into the Ritz off Trade Street on a Tuesday he'd claimed Raleigh, leaving 2 hours later, clothes whispering secrets, a montage of lunches, parking lot embraces, supermarket aisles where impatience becomes groceries. Timestamps like nails. I tasted metal. "We end it now." "We end it right," he said, jaw set. "In the open. They don't get shadows." That night, after Chad snored his way through plausible deniability, I locked my office door. Noah and I sat shoulder to shoulder in the spill of a desk lamp we bought during tax season. He told me the investigator's name, Denise Carter. My sister. 20 years a cop, then a PI who rebuilt her life out of other people's ruins. I called. Denise didn't gasp. She listened the way she does, quietly, like catching water with 2 hands, then said, flat and tired, "I hoped I was wrong." What she had could bruise a table. Surveillance stills. Hotel receipts paid in cash. Screenshots of transfers that looked like coins dropped down a wishing well. Then she turned a page that sucked the air out of the room. "He's been drawing loans against your retirement," she said. "Small amounts, 18 months running. Signature's yours on paper. It's not yours." "How much?" My voice belonged to the old house, thin, stretched, drafty. 59 and change. I pressed my palm to my sternum like I could keep my ribcage from splitting. "For her?" "For her, and a can't-miss real estate deal she recommended." Denise tapped a line on the ledger. "There is no deal. Funds landed in a shell company Lily controls." I laughed once, one bark, no humor. My husband, who corrected waiters and loved being right, was being taught a very expensive lesson by a woman half his age, and he thought he was the teacher. "It's not the ugliest part," Denise added, her voice softening the way you do before bad news. I followed another trail. 15 years of monthly payments to Cara Benton. She left Chad's old firm the year Noah started kindergarten. She has a daughter. Maya. 15. The room tilted. "Denise." I pulled a discreet comparison, she said. "Toothbrush sample. Preliminary only, but the lab's solid." She slid a single sheet under the lamp. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. An entire child. 15 minutes down the interstate. 15 years financed with my thrift and his lies. I didn't cry. Grief was an ocean. I was a rock that refused to move because moving meant drowning. Denise reached across the desk and took my fingers in hers. "You still want to do this?" "I wanted to stop," I said. The steadiness in my voice surprised me. "And I wanted to count." The next day sprinted. Florists roamed the halls like bees. Photographers tested light. Lily's laugh stitched the air. Denise arrived in black slacks and a polo with the caterer's logo, a coil of cable over her shoulder, an earpiece tucked into her hair. She'd already patched her laptop into the projector we'd rented for the Noah Through the Years slideshow. She pressed a tiny remote into my palm. "When you're ready," she said. One button. I had already signed divorce papers last week in a rush of future sense, back when I thought adultery was the extent of it. A flash drive holding everything Denise had gathered sat in the hidden pocket of my clutch. I felt it every time I moved, like a second pulse. At 4:05 p.m., I took my seat in the front row. The quartet found Pachelbel, the jasmine gave up its sweetness to the heat. Chad sat beside me, his hand warm over mine, that familiar thumb stroke over my knuckles he'd used when Noah was born and I was learning to breathe through pain. I stared at our hands and felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything and my body had called a ceasefire. Lily appeared at the top of the aisle, a sigh passing through the guests like wind in a wheat field. She found Chad's face. He couldn't help it, his mouth answered with a small, private pride. I watched it, memorized it, folded the memory like a blade. Noah stood at the arbor, not blinking. When Lily reached him, he took her hand, and the officiant began to talk about love and patience and truth. When he reached the old line, "If anyone knows a reason these two should not be married," the air drew tight as a drum. I stood. The officiant's words still lingered in the air when I stood. A wave rippled across the garden, whispers, quickened breaths, the shifting of silk skirts against chair backs. 300 faces turned in unison, a field of stunned expressions, the kind you see when lightning strikes a clear sky. Chad's hand clamped onto my arm. "Marissa, sit down," he hissed, voice tight and low. "You're making a scene." I shook his grip free. My heart pounded so hard I thought the bones of my chest might crack. "No," I said, each syllable crisp and deliberate. The scene was made long before I stood. Gasps. Silence. Then, slowly, heads turned toward the screen behind the arbor. The first image flickered to life, not Noah's chubby toddler grin as everyone had expected, but a surveillance shot, Chad and Lily, mouths pressed together in my living room, his hand buried in her hair. The garden erupted. Some guests covered their mouths, others leaned forward, eyes wide, phones already in their hands. Lily's father, the Honorable Mercer, half rose from his chair, thunder flashing in his face. Her mother clutched her pearls like prayer beads. "This is fake," Chad barked, surging to his feet. "These are fabrications. Montages. Marissa has lost her mind." I didn't look at him. My gaze swept across the crowd, across Noah, standing at the altar, pale but unmoving, and finally landed on Lily, radiant in lace and shame, her face draining of color. "This isn't a mistake," I said, raising my voice above the roar. "This has been happening for months." The slideshow shifted. One by one, more photos filled the screen, hotel entrances with timestamps, exits hours later with clothes wrinkled, parking lot embraces, candlelit dinners where secrets glowed brighter than the candles themselves. The air itself seemed to curdle. Lily staggered, nearly falling. A bridesmaid grabbed her arm, but she yanked away, eyes darting toward Chad. He avoided her gaze, his jaw locked tight with rage and panic. But I wasn't done. "You want evidence?" I asked, turning to the crowd. "Here it is." Bank statements appeared on the screen. Forged loan documents. Withdrawals from my retirement accounts, small enough to avoid suspicion but steady enough to carve out $60,000 in 18 months. Then came the Cartier receipt for a necklace, followed by a photo of Lily wearing it at her bachelorette dinner. Murmurs grew into angry shouts. I saw Lily's law partners in the third row, stiff-backed and pale. "My husband," I said, voice shaking but unrelenting, "has been stealing from our future to fund an affair with the woman who was supposed to marry our son." Lily's lips parted, a protest forming, but before she could speak, Denise, disguised among the catering staff, tapped the remote again. A new slide filled the screen. Paternity probability, 99.99%. Beside the clinical words was a school photo of a teenage girl with long dark hair and guarded eyes. "This," I said, the weight of 15 years crushing my throat, "is Maya Benton. She is my husband's daughter. 15 years. Hidden. Funded with our savings. A life built on lies. For a moment, nothing. Not a whisper, not a cough, not the rustle of silk or linen. Just silence, thick, absolute, devastating. Then it broke. Lily crumpled to the ground in a storm of lace, sobbing. Her mother dropped to her knees beside her while her father stood frozen, his authority stripped bare by humiliation. Guests erupted into noise, screams, shouts, frantic whispers, the metallic symphony of phones recording history in real time. Chad spun toward me, his mask of charm gone, replaced by naked fury. "You've destroyed us," he spat, veins standing out in his neck. "No," I said, calm now, my voice carrying over the din. "You destroyed us." He bolted. Shoving past chairs, knocking into startled guests, Chad sprinted for the side gate like a man escaping a burning building. A tray of champagne flutes crashed to the ground as he barreled through, shards glittering like confetti. He didn't get far. From behind an oak, Denise stepped out, small and solid, a cable still looped over her shoulder. As Chad ran past, she extended one foot with perfect precision. He went sprawling, suit tearing at the knee, palms skidding across the manicured lawn. Gasps and laughter erupted as he lay face down in the grass. "Going somewhere, Chad?" Denise asked evenly, planting a boot beside him. Before he could lurch to his feet, two uniformed officers appeared. They didn't head for Chad. They walked straight toward Lily. "Ms. Mercer," one officer said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "you are under arrest for suspicion of embezzlement and wire fraud." The snap of handcuffs echoed like a gunshot. Lily's scream, high, desperate, feral, carved through the afternoon. She writhed, begging her parents, begging Chad, begging anyone. But the officers were calm, steady, practiced. They guided her through the parted crowd as cameras flashed like lightning. I turned toward the altar. Noah stood rooted, his eyes on me, his face blank with shock and grief. Slowly, he stepped down and crossed the lawn until he was beside me. Without a word, he slid his arm around my shoulders, steadying me as much as himself. "It's over," he whispered. "Mom, it's finally over." For the first time in months, I let myself believe it. The next hours blurred, blue lights, statements given, the slow unraveling of a wedding that never would be. Guests fled in waves, some eager to escape scandal, others lingering in clumps, phones raised, eyes hungry. Lily was driven away in the back of a patrol car, her gown crumpled like a discarded curtain. Chad vanished into his sedan after a terse interview, face gray, shoulders slumped, reputation in tatters. I stayed. I stood in the wreckage of what was supposed to be my son's perfect day, surrounded by toppled chairs, smashed glasses, and abandoned programs fluttering in the grass. The jasmine still smelled sweet, stubbornly blooming above it all. And in the ruin of it, of him, of them, of everything I thought I knew, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Relief. The jasmine still smelled sweet, even as glass crunched beneath the shoes of bewildered guests filing out in clusters. I stood there, a statue in the wreckage, Noah's arms still heavy around my shoulders. My son, my boy who had spent months carrying knowledge no one his age should bear, was staring not at the chaos, but at me. His expression was unreadable, but his grip was steady. The police car's red and blue strobes cast the garden in shifting colors, like the world couldn't decide if this was tragedy or theater. Guests whispered in urgent knots, their voices like the buzz of hornets. "Did you see that girl? The DNA test, oh my God, the photos." Some fled to the parking lot, shame at having witnessed such a spectacle outweighing their hunger for gossip. Others lingered, phones raised, their recording lenses as merciless as the projector that had just torn my life open. "Mom," Noah said quietly, "we should sit." But I couldn't. My legs were trembling, my chest hollow, but sitting felt like surrender. Instead, I looked at him. "You knew it would be this bad?" His jaw flexed. "I hoped it wouldn't have to be this public." But it was the only way. He couldn't talk his way out. I wanted to tell him he shouldn't have had to play general in a war against his own father. I wanted to tell him I would have borne the shame for both of us. But before I could, a reporter from a local news channel, camera crew trailing, darted through the thinning crowd. "Mrs. Hale! Mrs. Hale! Do you have a comment on what just happened? On your husband's affair with his son's fiancée?" Noah stepped in front of me like a shield. "No comment. Please back away." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fury. The reporter pressed. "And the revelation about another child, how long have you known about this?" Denise appeared then, still in her catering uniform, eyes sharp and cold. She flashed a badge from her PI firm that looked enough like authority to send the crew scrambling back. "This isn't your circus," she snapped. "Move." For the first time since I stood, I felt like I could breathe. The official cleanup took hours. The wedding planner sobbed quietly into her clipboard as she dismantled an event that would never reach the finish line. Florists packed up arrangements that had been meant for tables now abandoned. The quartet had stopped playing long ago, their instruments stowed in velvet cases, their faces pale as they hurried away. Noah sat on the edge of the patio, jacket discarded, bow tie dangling. His friends hovered, unsure whether to comfort him or give him space. He waved them off, his gaze far away. I approached cautiously, as if he were a wounded animal. "Sweetheart," I said softly. He looked up. His face, God, it was so much like Chad's when Chad was young, before deceit calcified him. But Noah's eyes held something his father had lost long ago, integrity. "She never loved me," he said, his voice flat. "Not really." "Did she?" The question carved me open. I sat beside him, placing my hand on his back. "I think she loved the life she imagined. And she convinced herself you were part of it. But you deserve more than half love, Noah. You deserve real." His lips pressed together, trembling, before he nodded. His hand reached for mine, gripping tight like he did when he was 5 and afraid of the dark. "I don't know what to do tomorrow," he admitted, voice breaking. "Or the day after. Everything I thought I was walking into is gone." I pulled him against me, stroking his hair like I hadn't since he was small. "Then we'll figure it out together. Tomorrow, and the day after. One step at a time." For the first time all day, he let himself cry. By evening, the lawn was nearly empty. The officers had taken Lily away in handcuffs, her parents trailing in stunned silence. Chad, after being questioned briefly, had vanished into his car and peeled out of the neighborhood, leaving nothing but exhaust fumes and the sound of tires squealing. When the last guest drifted off, Denise and I sat at my kitchen table, the jasmine scent now mingled with the acrid tang of spilled champagne. She spread the evidence file between us again: hotel receipts, photos, bank transfers, forged signatures, DNA results. The pile looked heavier now, soaked with the weight of everything it had destroyed. "You did it," she said. "He can't bury this. It's all out in the open." My hands were cold, though the house was warm. I didn't want to destroy my son's wedding. But maybe it was already destroyed. Denise's eyes softened. "You didn't ruin anything, Marissa." "They did. All you did was show the truth." Her words should have been comforting, but all I felt was exhaustion so deep it rooted into my bones. The next morning, the story was everywhere. "Wedding scandal in Charlotte," the headlines read. "Bride arrested at the altar." "Prominent businessman exposed in affair with son's fiancée." My phone buzzed until I silenced it. Messages flooded in: sympathy, shock, gossip disguised as concern. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I walked into my lawyer's office with the sealed envelope of divorce papers and the flash drive of evidence. He didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. The file spoke for itself. With everything Denise had compiled, the divorce process was swift and brutal. Chad didn't fight. He couldn't. He lost the house, most of his remaining assets, and, though he wouldn't admit it, every shred of respect he'd ever had in this town. Noah, meanwhile, couldn't escape the whispers. Even when people were kind, their eyes carried pity. He stopped going to the office, stopped answering calls from old friends. I worried the betrayal would drown him. But then one evening, I found him at the dining room table, sketching on graph paper, a spread of colored pencils around him. He looked up sheepishly. "I've been thinking about going back to school," he said. "Landscape architecture. Making something new out of spaces that look ruined." Something in me cracked and mended at the same time. My boy, already rebuilding. As for me, the house felt haunted. Every room whispered with memories that now felt like lies. After weeks of silence, I put it on the market. It sold faster than I expected. I bought a small townhouse across town, modest and quiet. It was mine. No secrets hid in its walls. And then came the letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope, the handwriting neat and unfamiliar. From Cara Benton. Short, direct, "I'm sorry for the pain. My daughter Maya knows the truth now. She would like to meet you and Noah, if you're willing." I sat with that letter for 3 days, carrying it from counter to nightstand to purse like the weight of it might shift if I kept it close. Finally, I showed Noah. He read it once, twice, then looked at me with eyes steadier than I expected. "She's my sister," he said simply. "I want to meet her." And just like that, the next chapter began. The letter from Cara Benton stayed on the counter for 3 days, like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. Every time I walked past it, my stomach clenched. A new daughter. A hidden life. A teenage girl who bore no fault but carried the shape of her father's betrayal in her eyes. On the 4th day, I gave in. Noah sat at the kitchen table, a sketchbook spread open in front of him. He had started drawing gardens again, archways, winding stone paths, bursts of color in places where life felt barren. It was the first thing I'd seen him do that wasn't tinged with grief. I slid the envelope toward him. "Read it again. Tell me if you're still sure." He picked it up, eyes scanning the neat handwriting, lips pressed thin. When he finished, he didn't hesitate. "Mom, she's my sister. I need to know her." I studied his face, the determination, the quiet strength I hadn't realized he possessed until this nightmare began. "And if it hurts?" I asked softly. "It already hurts," he said. "Maybe knowing her will make it mean something." So we arranged a meeting. Neutral ground, a coffee shop halfway between our town and Cara's. Sunday afternoon, when the crowd was light. The day came gray and damp, the kind of sky that made the world feel muted. Noah drove. I sat beside him, twisting the strap of my purse until my fingers ached. Neither of us spoke much. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was survival. When we walked in, the shop smelled of roasted beans and rain-soaked pavement. I spotted them instantly. Cara, mid-40s, hair pulled into a low bun, the weariness of secrets etched into her posture. And beside her, Maya. She was 15, maybe 16, slender, clutching a book to her chest as if it were armor. One look at her and my breath hitched. Those eyes. Dark, intelligent, watchful. The same eyes that had once charmed me into believing Chad could be the foundation of a life. Maya's gaze darted to Noah, then back to me. Fear flickered there, but curiosity too. She didn't look at me with accusation, just hesitation, as if waiting to see if she was welcome. Noah stepped forward first. "Hi," he said, voice gentle. "I'm Noah." Her lips curved into the barest of smiles. "I know," she whispered. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. We sat together at a corner table, 4 mugs steaming between us. The silence stretched until Noah broke it. "What are you reading?" he asked, nodding toward the book still in her hands. Maya's cheeks flushed. "Frankenstein. For school. But I kinda like it." Noah grinned, warm and easy. "That's a classic. I read it when I was about your age. It's not really about the monster, though. It's about people who create something they don't take responsibility for." The weight of the words settled, unintentional but sharp. Maya's eyes flicked to me, then down again. "I'm sorry," I blurted before I could stop myself. "I'm sorry for what he did to all of us. To you most of all." Maya looked up. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You don't need to be sorry. You didn't do anything." Kara reached over, resting a hand on her daughter's arm. "She's stronger than I ever was," she said, voice tired. "I should have told you years ago. But the money, the stability. I told myself I was protecting her." Bitterness swelled in me, but I swallowed it. Kara wasn't the enemy, not really. She was another casualty of Chad's lies. Noah leaned forward. "You don't have to explain," he said to Maya. I'd like to know you. If you'd want that." Maya's fingers tightened on her book. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, shyly, she nodded. And just like that, a fragile thread formed. We stayed nearly 2 hours. Noah asked about her classes, her favorite shows, the music she liked. I watched, half in awe, as my son, still grieving his lost future, opened a door for a girl who'd had none of this coming. He didn't ask about Chad. He didn't push. He simply treated her like what she was, his sister. I spoke less. Mostly, I listened. The sound of her laugh, light, surprised, was a balm I hadn't expected. Each time I caught those familiar eyes looking at me, something inside twisted. She was both reminder and possibility. When it was time to leave, Maya stood awkwardly, shifting from foot to foot. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. Noah smiled, his voice soft. "This isn't the last time. I'll text you, okay?" She nodded, clutching her book tighter, but her smile reached her eyes this time. As we walked out into the drizzle, I glanced back through the window. Kara sat with her head in her hands, but Maya was watching us leave, her expression careful, hopeful. For the first time in weeks, my heart felt something other than grief. Over the next months, small rituals formed. Sunday dinners, sometimes awkward, sometimes filled with laughter. Coffee meetups after school. Texts between Noah and Maya about movies, memes, exams. Slowly, she wove herself into our lives, not as a symbol of betrayal, but as simply Maya. And I began to feel something dangerous, something I hadn't thought possible, love for her. She was innocent. She was bright, funny, and kind. And she was ours. Not Chad's secret, not Kara's burden. Ours. But outside our fragile little circle, the storm still raged. The media feasted on the scandal, headlines flashing daily. Lily Mercer's trial loomed, her family's reputation shredded. Chad, disgraced and jobless, drifted into obscurity. Yet here, in my smaller townhouse, with my son sketching gardens and his sister laughing over Sunday dinner, the noise of the world dimmed. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't whole. but it was real. And after years of lies, real was enough. The scandal didn't end when the last champagne glass shattered on the lawn or when the police car carrying Lily disappeared into the twilight. That was only the beginning. If the wedding had been an explosion, the weeks that followed were the fallout, radioactive, relentless, impossible to hide from. Everywhere I went, eyes followed me. The grocery store, the bank, even church. My name wasn't Marissa Hale anymore. I was the woman who exposed her husband and son's fiancé at the altar. My face had been plastered on local news, splashed across headlines, dissected in online forums. People whispered as if betrayal was contagious. For a while, I avoided the world. I ordered groceries online. I turned my phone to silent. I stopped answering calls from anyone but Noah and Denise. The house, our big, carefully curated house with its manicured yard and perfect patio, felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by the weight of lies. Every corner carried echoes of the family I thought I had, Chad laughing by the fireplace, Lily's heels clicking across the hardwood, Noah's quiet guitar strumming upstairs. I couldn't live in that mausoleum anymore. So I sold it. It didn't take long. Scandal attracts buyers the way fires draw moths, curious and opportunistic. I let it go for less than it was worth, but I didn't care. Money wasn't the point. Freedom was. I moved into a modest townhouse across town. 2 bedrooms, a tiny backyard with room enough for a grill and a patch of flowers. The walls were bare at first, but they were mine. No lies had been told here. No secrets had grown roots in its corners. Noah helped me move. We carried boxes in silence, the rhythm of lifting and stacking replacing words we weren't ready to say. At one point, he set down a box of books and looked around the new place. "It's small," he said. "It's enough," I answered. And for the first time in months, I almost believed it. Noah didn't bounce back quickly. Betrayal doesn't vanish just because the truth has been aired. For weeks, he drifted, sleeping late, staring at nothing, answering texts with one-word replies. But slowly, something shifted. He began sketching again, gardens, parks, open spaces. He applied to a master's program in landscape architecture, pouring himself into designing beauty from dirt. He told me once, quietly, it feels like making sense out of chaos. He also met someone new, a librarian named Elena, warm and genuine, with dark curls and a laugh that reached her eyes. She didn't treat him like a broken man. She treated him like a whole one who had survived something sharp and still had edges worth loving. I watched them together once, across a cafe table. The way she leaned in when he spoke, the way his shoulders relaxed. And for the first time, I thought maybe my son's future hadn't been stolen, it had just been rerouted. Meanwhile, Maya became part of our lives in a way I hadn't expected. At first, our meetings were tentative, coffee shops, Sunday lunches, polite conversations about school and hobbies. But soon, she was texting Noah daily, teasing him, confiding in him. She started coming over every other weekend. She helped me cook, standing in the kitchen with her hair tied back, laughing when she burned the garlic bread. Sometimes I'd catch her looking around my new townhouse, her gaze soft, wistful. Once, I asked her quietly, "Does it feel strange being here?" She hesitated. "It feels normal. Like how I always imagined family dinners might be." Her words pierced me, but in the best way. Because Maya wasn't a reminder of Chad's lies anymore. She was herself, bright, thoughtful, funny, innocent. And mine, in a way that transcended blood or betrayal. Chad's life, on the other hand, unraveled quickly. He lost his job within a month. Officially, it was downsizing, but everyone knew better. No company wanted the scandal of employing the man whose affair with his son's fiancée had gone viral. His name became shorthand for betrayal in our town. He moved into a small apartment on the edge of the city, gray and cramped, a far cry from the estate we once shared. I heard through Denise that he rarely went out. When he did, people whispered. He became a ghost long before he died. One evening, months later, he showed up at my new doorstep. His hair was grayer, his shoulders stooped. For the first time, he looked small. "Marissa," he said, voice trembling, "I'm sorry." I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd shared meals with Noah and Maya, where we'd started building something honest. He apologized. For the lies, the betrayal, the years of deceit. He said he was in therapy. He said he was trying to understand why he'd done it. And I believed him. But belief doesn't equal forgiveness. "I forgive you," I said finally. "But not for you. For me. Because I can't carry this weight anymore. But I'll never trust you again. And we'll never go back." He nodded, tears in his eyes. And then he left. I never saw him again. If Chad faded into obscurity, Lily's fall was public and brutal. The embezzlement evidence Denise had uncovered was airtight. Her firm pressed charges, and the case made headlines for months. The once promising young attorney, radiant bride-to-be, was reduced to tabloid fodder. Her parents, respected, influential, pillars of the community, sat in the courtroom with faces like carved stone as their daughter was sentenced to 2 years in a low-security prison, along with an order to repay over $200,000. I didn't attend the sentencing. But I saw the news coverage. I saw Lily in her orange jumpsuit, chains clinking at her wrists, the same hands that once reached for my son's. And for a fleeting second, I felt pity. She had been young, ambitious, reckless. But then I remembered Noah's face that morning, pale with suspicion, breaking under the weight of doubt. And pity evaporated. She had chosen her path. She had carved it in lies. The story lingered longer than I ever expected. For months, news outlets ran updates: bride sentenced for embezzlement. Betrayed groom's father facing civil suits. The scandal that shook Charlotte's elite. It became a cautionary tale, retold at dinner parties, whispered in PTA meetings, debated in comment sections. But like all storms, it eventually passed. New scandals took its place. My name faded from headlines. The world moved on, even if the scars in my family remained. A year after the wedding that wasn't, life had settled into something new. Smaller. Quieter. But honest. Noah thrived in his program, his sketches transforming into real projects. He and Elena grew closer. Sometimes, when they visited, I'd watch her run her fingers through his hair while he explained a design, and I'd feel my chest swell with relief. He had found someone who loved him not for what he could provide, but for who he was. Maya became a fixture. She and Noah developed a sibling bond that was effortless and teasing, the kind forged in late-night texts and shared secrets. She called me sometimes just to ask about recipes or vent about school. The first time she ended a call with, "Love you," my throat closed with tears. As for me, I rebuilt. My business slowly recovered. Clients who had left quietly returned, realizing the scandal wasn't mine to carry. I filled my townhouse with small joys: fresh flowers on the table, photographs of Noah and Maya smiling together, a bookshelf lined with the novels I'd promised myself I'd read one day. I wasn't whole. But I was real. And that was enough. One evening, about a year after it all began, Noah and I sat in the backyard of my townhouse. The sky was streaked with gold, the air warm. Maya was inside, helping Elena with dessert. Their laughter floated through the open windows. Noah leaned back in his chair, looking at me. Mom, he said softly, do you ever wish you hadn't found out? That the wedding had gone on, and none of this came out? I thought about it. About the humiliation, the headlines, the grief. About the years wasted on a man who had betrayed us. And then I thought about this moment. The sound of my son's laughter inside. The sight of Maya, safe and loved. The peace of a home not built on lies. No, I said finally. I don't wish that. Because the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is better than living in a beautiful lie. He nodded, quiet, thoughtful. Then he smiled. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled too. The family I thought I had was shattered on a sunny afternoon in front of 300 witnesses. It burned down in public, loud and merciless. But from those ashes, something smaller rose. Imperfect, fragile, but honest. I lost everything I thought mattered. But in the end, I found what did. A son. A daughter. A new life. And peace.